Hello everyone, welcome to the series of Understanding Educational Research with me. In the episodes to come, I'm going to walk you through some of the most established journals in the field of education and applied linguistics. Together we will explore different abstracts from the research. Abstract is that key important paragraph that summarizes all of the points that we need to know about a research. So shall we start it with the first one for today? So the first one is from Journal of Immersion and Content-Based Language Education, and the abstract one is entitled Language-Focused Episodes by Monolingual Teachers in English Medium Instruction Science Lessons. So the context of this study is about newly emerging EMI setting in China, and especially it's in an Anglophone high school curriculum that is taught by predominantly foreign teachers through English to local Chinese students. Again, it's another great example of EMI that is implemented at secondary level. It's quite similar to the Lebanese context that we explored previously. It's also worth noting that these teachers are termed as monolingual teachers in the sense that they cannot use students' first language, in this case I assume it's Chinese, as a resource in their teaching should they wish to, as opposed to the typical bilingual teachers commonly explored in the existing EMI literature. So I assume that these teachers are proficient or even native in their first language, which is English. So the aims of this study is really to explore the language-focused episodes where students' attention were explicitly diverted from the content plane to the language plane. So they want to see whether or not when native teachers are employed to teach or to deliver EMI classes, the language content continuum, how is it being shaped as a result of that. So in terms of methodology, I think they use both quantitative and qualitative analysis of 30 video recorded EMI science lessons. So they use classroom observations in terms of their research methods. In terms of the findings, they show that very limited explicit language instruction with non-technical vocabulary being the main type of the LFEs, and only a narrow range of grammatical features being attended to. So it really shows that there's some limitations in having monolingual teachers in delivering content and language in EMI classrooms. So the implication is that there's a lack of focus on language in the context of monolingual teachers, and also the potential for bilingual teachers to use both first and second language for the language-focused episodes. So my thoughts on this study, it's really important research, I would say, to counter the previous arguments of previous findings and studies that only native teachers could deliver high-quality EMI lessons. Here, the evidence shows that there are limited results in terms of both language and content delivery, and it's really highlighted the drawbacks of native speakerism, in which they could not use the first language to facilitate, translanguaging instruction or even just local medium instruction, and so it has an adverse implication on narrowing down the learning scope for students. So this is a great starting point for today. Shall we move on to the next one? So the next one is from System, and the abstract 2 is entitled Classroom Interaction in EMI High Schools. Do teachers who are native speakers of English make a difference? Again, so the context is in EMI high schools, very rare to see development of EMI high school classrooms, but it has increasingly become a focus of research nowadays, recently. Here the context is still again in China, and I would presume that it again happens in a private international high school, similar to the previous study. What about the aims of this research? I think we need to sort of take a step back and see that previous EMI studies reported that teachers' dominance of the interaction and low levels of student participation. So that's the key issue at stake. And the common explanation for that was that mostly local EMI teachers who have been reported to lack the linguistic proficiency to engage in unscripted interaction. So they're not being able to improvise some unexpected situation that's happening in the EMI classrooms. They cannot go outside of the script to explain and to help the students. So that's the common explanation. So having recognized that common explanation for low student participation, the study explored from a different angle and asked the question, do teachers who are native speakers of English make a difference? So assuming that teachers who are native speakers of English shouldn't have any linguistic problem as the local EMI teachers do. Okay, so in terms of methodology, again, I think they use classroom observation. In this case, is investigate the interaction patterns of 15 secondary science teachers in EMI high school programs. And what did they find here? So in terms of the finding, they show that interaction was similarly teacher dominated and student responses were low of linguistic complexity. So that suggests the proficiency or the English proficiency of teacher might not be the sole reason for this common issue of students not engaging in EMI classroom. And the implication for this is to really identify other reasons that are involved contributing to the issue of low student participation and some implication for EMI teacher professional development. My thoughts on this study, I think it's a really interesting approach to validate or rather invalidate the common understanding on local and native EMI teachers. Methodologically, I do believe that the study still remains weak and quite limited because it lacks comparable evidence of teachers who are not proficient in Chinese and who are for the similar context. So to be able to really make a case for the findings, I do believe that they can redesign their research methods in a way that that involve the same group of students but different groups of teachers deliver the same content and record for their sort of understanding and interaction and participation with different groups of teachers who are either native or non-native. That would have really strengthened the case. But it could be the case that both teachers and students are non-native, and then they could use some translanguaging that could help to promote interaction and engagement in classroom. And little was said about the entry levels of students, so that can be a contributing factor to this issue as well. Okay, so that's 2 abstracts for now. Shall we move on to the keyword for today? So the keyword for today is native speaker. So we've heard a lot about native versus non-native speakers. Beyond the linguistic grounds, I do think that native speaker and versus non-native speakers tend to capture multiple layers of meanings. There's dichotomy between native and non-native according to many critical linguists. Were not merely made on the linguistic backgrounds. The native speakers often refers to a pervasive ideology that represents a Western culture in which, the central or the inner circle of English represents somehow a form of linguistic superiority as opposed to the rest of non-native or the outer circle. And this way of referring to different types of English teachers has heavy impacts on many aspects of education, ranging from employment policy to representation of the language to assessment of learning outcomes. Because the attitudes toward native speakerism imply some hidden discrimination and, cultural overgeneralization and dismission of other minorities and marginalized varieties of English as well. So it's interesting to see that the two studies that we looked at today shows evidence of limitations or even weaknesses in using native teachers for EMI contexts, or at least there's little distinctive difference in the quality of teaching between native and non-native teachers. And I do believe that as a final word, to be able to become critical researcher, we should really be cautious with such blanket labeling approach like that. So that's all from me for now. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!